Hi, welcome to my video. I'm Jennifer Roberts. You're catching me on my YouTube channel, True Divine 44. You can also get me on my Bitchute channel, True Divine 44, and it is the True Divine for both Instagram and Twitter. Facebook, also True Divine 44. So any likes, shares, subscribes, follows are absolutely great, including the comments. I love those most, to see how you guys are getting on, how you're feeling the energies, how the tarot's resonating with you or not resonating with you. Just like to hear from you all that are taking the time to listen in. Now, this is writing on the wall, just where I put out my ponderings, my knowings, sometimes my intuitive knowings, sometimes those intuitive knowings mixed with research or just an energy that I'm feeling. So it's whatever takes my fancy, basically. So today I was in a shop, a country store that is quite big and always practically empty. I walked in. I'd been there the previous week and had no problems, and so one or two of the staff without a mask on. Fine, great for me. I went today, and all of a sudden, I still saw one member of staff floating around without a mask on, the manager, in fact, but I was met at the door with glares. I was the only one in there, bar a couple. Bearing in mind, this is quite a big, airy country store. It sells equine products and equipment. And so they looked at me, they're glaring at me, and then plumped up the courage to say, "Where do you have your mask? Where's your mask?" In a very panicked manner. And it said, "I don't own a mask. I won't wear a mask." She then went on to say why, with quite an attitude. I'd said, "It's actually, as it stands for now anyway, illegal for you to ask me why I'm exempt." And she said, "I wasn't asking you that." I said, "By asking that question, yes, you were, because now I've had to disclose to you that I'm exempt, and you're still prompting me for more answers." To that, they started whispering in front of me, still having me stuck at the front of the store, whispering in front of me, and the words were, "What are we supposed to do about the unmasked?" That term made my stomach churn, because I realized, looking at these two young girls that are doing their job, I'm not going to be nasty to them. I'm going to be firm and stand in my rights. But, I'm not going to be nasty to them. And my heart bled for them, because I realized how taken over some people were still by this ludicrousy. And they're wearing masks that do not protect from any virus. They're also wearing masks that are basically made out of the same material that tights, stockings are made out of. That ain't protecting you from any kind of particle. And so they stood there whispering a little while, and I heard the unmasked again. And I'd said, "I am not the unclean. Can I shop here or not? I'm not going to stand here any longer." Yeah, we can't stop you from shopping here. In fact, they could, which shows how little they know of what they do. So I got my stuff. I recognized that there was those members of staff, ironically, without a mask on too. Went quickly to get what I wanted. I needed to cool down. I needed to breathe it out. Got to the till. Again, more glares and disbelief that anybody that had just been in the shop a week before, fine, but within a week, the rules are changed, and somehow, some way, I was now the unclean, the minority, and so I paid for the goods. And as I was leaving, I took the trolley out, obviously, put the things in the car, and took the trolley back. As I was putting the trolley back, the manager who hadn't had a mask on, came scurrying out from the back with said mask on and said, "Just leave it there, just leave it there. I'll have to antibacterial, all of it now." So you wouldn't have done that if I had a mask on? None of you are wearing gloves. You don't ask customers to wear gloves. And plus, antibacterial for virus doesn't compute. Anyway, I insisted on putting the trolley back where I had previously decided to put it back where the trolleys belong, as a stamp of my authority in the most peaceful way that I possibly could in that moment in time. So I leave the store. I have to breathe it out. Thankfully, I'm talking to my friend on the phone the whole time that this is happening, who helps me breathe it out and just gives me a year to discuss what she'd heard and and to tell her more of the glares and things and the scenario. So that got me thinking too, when I was shouting out about the masks and equating them to a strategy of war that we saw in World War II, I was shouted down. I was asked by many via email, via messenger, in public posts on social media, that it was rude. It was rude and disrespectful. And I obviously didn't know anything about World War II when World War II was very close to my heart. My granddad, he taught me a lot of his bravery. I've always got his belt around me that he made when he was a prisoner of war to keep his mind sane. So I know a lot about World War II. And I know the synchronicities, and I know by my intuition that I've always said World War II didn't end. It's just been extended over a period of time and went a bit underground, a bit more glossy, a bit more cleverly sheened over, but it never actually disappeared. And so that got me to thinking of me equating that and trying to get that through to people. And when people would say to me, even in my own family, just wear it, it's just a mask, it's not going to do anything to protect, but just wear it. And I would try to get through to them the importance of not just being complacent, even for what seems like a seemingly small thing to bend over about. But it's these small things that they know psychologically they get to us. Psychologically, they cause divide. Psychologically, they cause cognitive dissonance. And so that's why I stood firm. So I went on to make notes, as I do. This helps me often transmute the feelings I've been having, remembering old intuitions I've had, putting them together with what I'm feeling in that present moment. And so this is the Unmasked writing on the wall, prompted by today's events in that store. And it came to mind that I'm going to go through some of the things that I've got in these notes. And it came to mind that the similarities are undeniable. And so we see in most cases, people are affected by COVID-19 in the mind first and most of all. That very few are being affected by the propaganda that was put out. We see that there is this fear of being physically and violently attacked. And again, most of that is in the mind via this boogie thing that stays in the shadows, waiting, even being able in the UK to tell the time and count how many people you're in a group with, and even being able to decipher between those groups. If you're politicians, it's okay. If you're builders, it's okay. If you're police, it's okay. If you're doctors and nurses, it's okay. It's clever enough to know what kind of group you're in. If you're on a certain political side, it's okay. If you're doing a certain right, it's okay. If you're doing a protest, oh goodness, God forbid. And so we see that the mind is the first casualty, as it was in the lead up to World War II and during World War II. There was a breaking of the mind, the cognitive dissonance that was set in, the fear of physical attack, which we have also seen in that if you protest lockdown, we have seen both in the UK, the US, France, Germany, other places that don't spring to mind right now, but you guys will know, where we see that the very people who are supposed to protect our rights, who are supposed to allow us to safely demonstrate our rights and our authority over our rights, are the police force. And we have been bombarded with short videos over social media of police attacking murderous police. We've been bombarded with that, and again, they're in a small minority in the police to that extreme, but not anymore. More of them are just going to do as they are told, so be aware of that. So, as well as it being the casualty of the mind, we have seen in the Trafalgar protests, we saw that the police attacked unprovoked. They attacked virologists speaking on the stage, and so we see that, and they did that in the plain light of day. That was planned. That was premeditated, so that it would get out there that, you know, be in fear of standing for your rights, be in fear of it from physical attack, and also this bogey monster that hides in the shadows that could kill you violently and quickly at any time. We look at the limited movement when we look at the similarities between the physical attack from World War II to now, where there have been lockdowns, where we have seen limited movement around countries, where we have seen limited movement even in Australia, in the most extreme, limiting the movement to so many kilometers away from your designated area. We get into fear, and it is justifiable fear at this point after all of the MK Ultra style work that they've been up to of triggered people physically attacking. And so we have the first casualty being the mind constantly thinking and thinking and thinking of the invisible. And then we get visual propaganda that is deliberately allowed to be put up there through social media, through mainstream media, and we are pummeled with it, so that now the mind has to deal with the small but physical reality also of being physically maimed and hurt. We see the people attacking small businesses where income has been limited. We see other people attacking other people's businesses, small businesses. We see that we have a lot of research to show that, you know, the likes of Soros and Gates are behind that, that was premeditated and planned and very cleverly done so, you know, where we saw pallets of bricks in the UK, in Australia, in America, I'm sure in France too, just magically appear overnight before certain things were announced. So then the mind goes into what our beloved went through in World War II, in the lead up to World War II and during World War II. We see that the mind then can be pummeled into depression, fear, worry, and it's an endless worry, because we have been given some let up and then another lockdown, given some let up and then another lockdown. So the psychological warfare is strong there. It's the narcissistic roller coaster ride of give a little bit, you know, love a little bit and then take more away. So we see that has all been in a great effort to not have anything to do, and the scientific evidence backing up from over 40,000 doctors have correlated a website and magazine. I'm going to do a video about it to show and speak openly about the fact that none of these measures are based in science at all, based in common sense at all. So we see that all of these measures do get us ready, though, to a great extent, desperate for just rolling up our sleeve and taking the magic jab. We see that we would be ready for that. And that is one of the biggest agendas that is going on right now, going into this next cycle. Just like we see that Hitler really had all his obsession really was to find this holy grail in order to make this perfect human race, this elite human race that could rule the world. We see that that never ended. I've done videos where I've mentioned over and over again the Holy Grail being the DNA, you know, as it's spoken that God knows every hair on your head. No, he just knows the code of your DNA. That's what I think the message is behind that. And that is what they have always been trying to make themselves gods over the people. And so we see that that has continued since World War II. It hasn't stopped. Constantly learning more about us, constantly learning how to control us, constantly learning how to manipulate the very core of us, our blood, our line, our DNA. And so, hey, Theodore. So then we see that we have this jab being an RNA and DNA changing jab. What was the obsession with the Nazi Party, you know, with eugenics and trying to make this perfect race, this elite, powerful race? So that's another huge correlation that I don't think has ever ended, but we can make specific have an understanding that it's another big similarity. So people have gone into hiding. They're hiding away from others. They're hiding away from themselves. They're just hiding in their homes. We see that that is happening now. We see that certain stars and like actors, actresses, even royal families have gone into hiding. You know, they've taken cover. We are under the mercy completely, or we feel like we are under the mercy of the decisions of buffoons in our leadership around the world. We have the very genuine worry that we have been pummeled with of food shortages. You know, we've seen panic buying, we've seen stockpiling, but again, that food shortage for the Western world hasn't really come. So we've got that fear of it now, but even that we've become complacent over it, and it might still hit us genuinely. And with the lack of income because of small businesses being destroyed, not just by the leadership around the world, but by other people, just like in World War II, there is a lack of income. So it is difficult to stockpile any food. We have a fear of an enemy. But whereas before in World War II, we had various different sides depending on what country we were in. With this one, it's amped up a little bit in that we seem to have, or we're being sold, the universal enemy of you know what. Yet we of this boogeyman, with it being perpetrated to be able to kill anyone violently and quickly at any time. We've seen weird speeches in the early days by the likes of Madonna and Tom Hanks. We see that even our leaders that are supposed to protect us, like Boris and Trump, get this boogie monster. And so it shows us that, or it makes us feel like we're all in the same boat, and we can't hold our leaders to the fire and ask them questions and ask them to do our will, our bidding, as they should be, because they are on a par with us. This is an enemy that we are truly, no matter what bracket of income we are in, it can affect us and can have a quick and detrimental effect on us, and even take our life, even though their own statistics do not add up to that. But it gives them a little bit more movement. It gives them a little bit more compassion in a lot of people's eyes, because they have been affected too. And so it shows with the movement restrictions, it shows that we become isolated, just as we did in World War II. And the isolation has huge effects. But those restrictions, just like in World War II, have expanded out into information restrictions, where we see that certain propaganda and certain news was sold to certain communities around the world in World War II to be able to meet the needs of the leaders that were causing this. We see that this info has now extended, and we've seen absolute evidence of that in recent days, of how the internet can even be limited at the touch of buttons by the powers that be, in order to limit information, certain countries not being able to view certain websites, for instance. Or accounts being shadow banned or even deleted, for just sharing intelligence, sharing knowledge, talking, for goodness sake. We see that schools get closed as they did before. The endless warnings of it getting worse before it gets better. Hold on in there. We heard that over and over during World War II, to keep people at bay, to make people feel a sense of camaraderie, a sense and a burden to do as we were told, in order to beat this common enemy. The physical destruction of buildings and statues, we see that, and it is to trod down the community, to lower people's source of income, to make people feel unsafe. Again, we saw that especially over in America. We saw a bit of it here in the UK. But we saw that where statues and buildings were literally getting burned. They were getting burned to the ground. They were getting pulled down. A lack of essentials. Now, where in the UK we haven't really suffered too much with the lack of essentials, they just improvised. They made sure over Twitter that lots of propaganda was getting out there, because big stores like Tesco's had cling filmed off baby clothes and books and college instruments, like notebooks, pens, calculators. They had actually cling filmed off sanitary products for women and condoms and all of those things, essential things, deodorants, things that would make you clean, like shampoos and things. Now I think they've took that down now. I'll have to check up on that. But they made damn sure that the propaganda was put out there, was trending on Twitter for a good 24 hours, so that plenty of people saw it, again, instilling that fear. And I think that's where they've gotten a lot better. They've realized that they don't actually always have to go to the ends of the earth to create the reality. They just have to put a little bit out there on social media with an illusion of the reality that they want to create in your mind, and we take it away from there. Instead of just, like we saw a few brave souls ripping down the cling film, instead of just doing that en masse and getting what we need, paying for it and leaving, we felt blocked off from it. We did as we were told. We saw a sign not to cross. We saw cling film to stop us from getting these sanitary products that we needed. And so, but the biggest, most detrimental of the comparisons between the two is what I've mentioned previously throughout this, the divide amongst the people. We see that there has been the pro-belief in the boogie monster and the not pro-belief in the boogie monster. We see the split between political parties being violent, the split between races. We've seen BLM, really go on the attack to really indoctrinate people with a fear of different skin colors. We see, and even triggering people of different skin colors to join in with that, when the normal people of all of the different races are saying, whoa, that does not represent us, but it's being drowned out because, again, social media is all too quick to share their propaganda. We see friends and families being divided over so many issues, over the fact that people are depressed, people are triggered, people have taken certain sides on the political sphere, on certain movements. And so there are divides where families and friends are actually breaking up. And of course, with these lockdowns and movement restrictions, they're not getting to see each other, just as they did in World War II. For many years, when soldiers were off fighting the war, they were divided from their families. So lots of soldiers came back to the UK with their families despising what they had done because of certain propagandas that had leaked through the walls into the UK. They weren't all met with a triumphant sound. They weren't all met with praise and thanks. And so with the biggest is coming to what I started off this video with, the clean and the unclean, the masked and the unmasked. I was looked upon today as though I was a walking fungus. I was looked upon today in that shop as though I was going to kill them all if I dared to cough. That like a leper, everything I touched had to be disinfected, antibacterial wiped. I told them they should boil it if they really wanted it to be effective, and that's about as nasty as I got, but that's factual. And so this is where we have to stop bending over. This is where we have to stop looking through the illusion that the powers that be want us to look through. The games that they are playing, the good guy, the bad guy, the good girl, the bad girl, the truth, the not so truth, the factual, the not so factual, the cognitive dissonance. And it is the same script, and too many are falling for it again. And we are actually seeing many people in our community being so indoctrinated and so empowered with some sense of authority by the powers that be, by the globalists, by the transhumanists, by this mainstream media, these social media tycoons. We are seeing that they have been so indoctrinated that they really are starting to see people without a pair of tights around their face or a bandana around their face, which pre-2019 would have been asked to be taken down. Pre-2019, ironically, somebody going into a garage with a helmet on was illegal. You couldn't do it because they had to be able to see your face, otherwise you'd be frightening. You see how they flip the script? And so this has got to stop. It's got to stop falling for these political tricks, falling for the division, falling for the propaganda, because it's taken us to a very dark and dangerous place. And this is a certain timeline that I see, but I still see a window of opportunity if people can stop falling for these same old scripts with slightly different characters, slightly different playbooks, but the core of it is the same script. Now, I want to cover just quickly what they've gotten better at over the time between World War II and now. Just like World War II, propaganda was the biggest tool to rally people up to do what the leadership wanted them to do, to control and manipulate people, to police each other, to do the work for the leaders on the main part, to channel them into a certain direction, to channel the decisions of people, making people feel like they were making free and discerned decisions, when actually they'd just been poked and prodded into a certain lane, a certain belief system, certain something or someone to externalize all of their power onto. And so today they've can, in a much more faster and a much more effective way, reach many more people. They can also restrict the reach of others to many more people at the click of buttons. They even have not just humans on the job, they have AI coded to do that job all of the time. I mean, that would have been their dream come true in World War II. So they've made it happen. From generation to generation, the mantle has been passed down and they've gotten better at it. Charles J. Rollo, who monitored German broadcasts in 1940, quoted that they transformed the medium of radio from a crude propaganda bludgeon into the most powerful single instrument of political warfare the world has ever known. If only he had seen today, presently as it is, and the both wonderful but weaponized ways they have of communicating with those in the world, even ways that they have of segregating information to certain communities. They still do the same old tricks, but they do it a lot better, because now we've been indoctrinated with Hollywood. Now we've been indoctrinated with stars, and political figures are nothing more than actors on the main part who have gotten a name from themselves because of the family that they belong to. We see that they've gotten a lot better at making the likes of the royal family loved and famous over the years. Yes, that's changing, thank goodness. But, you know, it has been something that has prepared us for the ground that we see now, where even more people much more easily externalize all of their power instead of doing their inner work onto external figures, actors, actresses, stars, sports stars. So now we see that all of these stars have been harnessed within mainstream media and are on the main part bought and paid for, and put out certain messages at certain times to steer certain parts of their fan base. That they've been totally made like dolls in the factory to serve a certain fan base, knowing the script that was going to be played out years before, so they can roll these certain actors and actresses and singers and sports stars, politicians out at the right time with the right kinds of speeches. And so that has gotten a lot better. They've gotten a lot better at that. So they bring back within those actors and actresses and politicians, there's certain communities they speak to in different ways, and they bring back nostalgic thoughts, you know, pride thoughts of who we used to be and who we can be again. Very cleverly worded scripts to certain communities, and they'll differ that script depending on who they're speaking to. They've gotten better at that. Why? Because they have manipulated and conditioned certain communities to think a certain way. Certain communities having a certain victimhood to them, other communities having a certain power grab to them, wanting to feel better than. So they've embedded themselves just like they did in World War II, and what we know is the deep state now, the hidden hand, you know, the Illuminati. They've embedded themselves around the world using people from that country, we see that they actually used people that we know about to put forward as convincing members of Congress and of parliamentary members to insert in isolationist propaganda, even into the congressional record in America, and similarly in the UK. There's so much of it in the UK that it is hard to choose just one. It is hard to decipher them all. And they have gotten much better at doing this. They have had time to put their deep roots in the deep state. They have had time to learn how to basically disguise wars, to disguise that wars are going on, even getting us complacent about wars that are actually going on, but because they're not on our home turf, we are very indoctrinated to take a little bit of notice, but not much notice at all. So when I got told today, again, that it was rude to correlate these similarities between World War II and now, and to say that World War II never ended, I resent that. I resent that in the fact that, look around the world, just because it's not happening on our home turf, the leaders of the world, or so-called leaders of the world by country, have been in perpetual war with countries poorer than them for things that they've just wanted, or certain strategies that they've just had to play out for a certain amount of income through war utensils, armory, tanks, bullets, and the money that can be passed around and made through that. So actually, when people say we're not suffering like that, no, we're not, but there are plenty others that are, and they haven't stopped suffering. It's been continuous. So I do correlate the two. And I do say to people, wake up now. Take the window that we have right now to realize the mess we've been in, and to not be nostalgic about the leaders that have been in the system for so many years, that have had the system do very well for them, thank you, so that they are part of the 1%, 0.1%, whatever it is. To stop being tricked into nostalgia about that, to see what's been really happening, that we've been getting funneled and trapped more and more and more. And now is our window. If you feel you came here to do something, if you feel you came here to experience this life, but also help liberate this realm, then do it. Do it now. If you have businesses, open them up. If you know people with businesses, support them to be open, even if we have to take it in turns to stand outside of shops. Sell some bread and butter and say you're an essential shop. Go around the obstacles however you can, but we have to do this in numbers. We have to do this en masse. Stop wearing a mask that all science says cannot protect you from the very boogie monster that they're trying to make you frightened of. Stop looking at your fellow man and woman as a germ if they are the unmasked. Stop going by the science that has, with a very little bit of research, can be shown to be tracked back to the very people who are making the most money right now out of it. So take of that what you will, but please take of that, because I know I'm not wrong on this. I'm willing to stand by my word to say so. I'm willing to stand by my word and say that all of this change, if you feel you came here to do something, the time is now. The window is now, because there still is a window of opportunity. To some, this might feel like prophecy, that it has to happen. And to a certain extent, some of these things have. to make people filter themselves out of that illusion, to allow people to see the depths of how much we've been hijacked, or how much this realm has been hijacked. But there is a certain window, a different timeline, where we can stop their so-called prophecies. They're only prophecies because they make them come to the fore. And they only make them come to the fore because we keep allowing them to do so. Because we continue to stay indoctrinated. We continue to do a little bit of inner work, but not the whole entirety, so that we can be triggered and channeled into certain lanes. So that's what I would hope that people take from this. I hope that made sense to you. I hope the right ears and eyes saw that and heard that. Much love and appreciation for listening. Yes, Theodore?
Yes.
Yes. You know, we can do this still.
Yes.
We have to be what? Divine? You can say it, divine?
Divine.
And sovereign.
Sovereign.
And take that seriously. All right. Much love. Stay balanced and stay whole. As always, if you'd like a personal reading with me, yeah? Mummy's good at that, yeah? Personal tarot reading, any spiritual guidance sessions, or any energy work, you can hit me up at truedivinemedia@gmail.com, or you can get me at truedivine44 on my business page on Facebook. Hit me a private message on there. Or, what, darling?
Or private video or public video.
Yeah, the personal readings and energy work and spiritual guidance is a private video. Did I not?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's all done by private video, just to clarify. Thank you for that.
Yes.
Clever boy. Okay, say bye.
Bye.
Bye. Much love, much wholeness.
Much wholeness.